Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm not sure if it's doing photos or what, but anyhow. Oh no, it's running. There we go. Better stop it. You may have
It's a pretty East Coast day here in Toronto. I've got a donair with just tomato and onion in it, and Theodore's visiting, just like any self-respecting East Coaster. As soon as his government support ran out, he had to head out west to find work, and he's got an awkward layover and is spending it wandering along the Toronto harbour front. Everybody's out taking photos, but there are a bunch of nifty boats around Toronto's waterfront all of the time, not just when Theodore is visiting. So in this video, I'm just gonna sort of walk the whole length of it on this beautiful Halifaxy weather day and check them all out. Up first is Theodore. Unlike most of the boats that look like traditional boats in Toronto, which are actually just modified normal boats, this boat is actually in its original condition. It was originally built to be Theodore, actually. And what's very weird about that is it is one of the only examples of a boat that was built off of a model. So normally model boats are, 1/64th size or something. But instead, the actual Theodore is only 55 centimeters long, and Theodore 2 is a 36:1 replica of the original. That's kind of fun. Marilyn Bell, number 1. This is either the world's shortest or North America's shortest ferry service. It takes it only 90 seconds or so to cross this great expanse. And most interestingly to me is that they're actually going to convert, I think this one, I'm going to wait until I can see the name, over to electric. And it's actually going to be powered by Bullfrog Power, a sort of renewable power generator. And yeah, we just witnessed the entire ferry trip that connects the mighty Pearson International Airport to the village of Toronto here. Okay, so that was actually the David Hornell. The boat I thought I was talking about is this one laid up over here. Probably engine maintenance or something. It's a really cool way to get to the island, and I'm pretty sure that in the game of Toronto that this would be a jump for sure. The Radium Yellowknife, which used to push around barges full of uranium for the Manhattan Project, now pushes around barges of sugar for the Red Path plant here. I don't know which is worse for your health. They checked, it's not radioactive. So they say. This beautiful schooner called the Empire Sandy is not a schooner at all. It's a deep sea tugboat similar to the Radium that we just saw. It was built by the Royal Navy for the war effort and afterward changed hands a few times, and quite recently has been decked out to look like a schooner. My personal favorite of the gimmicky ways to get to the Toronto Islands is the Tiki Taxis. There you go. The Tiki Taxis are cuter. I also find the romanticization of pirates kind of weird in general, but really it's because the Tiki Taxis have those grass tops on them. That's a big W. Tarps? Get out of here. This pirate pontoon cracks me up. It doesn't even pretend. I just missed the Kaiyama or Kaiyama, I'm not sure how to say it, taking off. I think that this boat, this black one here with the 3 masts, is probably the only boat most people who've walked along the Toronto harbourfront have really taken notice of. It was actually built as a sailboat in the 1930s. It actually operated under sail until 1970. Now it steams and diesel. And I don't think I've ever actually seen it under sail, despite the fact that it's usually tootling around the harbor here. So I don't know if that's just easier for them because they're only doing short trips, and maybe if you charter it for a longer trip, they can go under sail, or if it's actually just a diesel boat now with gimmicky masts for the heck of it. What is the Dartmouth ferry doing here in Toronto? In true East Coast fashion, when Metro Trans realized it was no longer worth keeping around, they fired it up on Kijiji and sweet talked some dumb Westerner into paying way too much for it. They were going to in 2017 retrofit this thing and turn it into a touristy Toronto Island ferry thing. Apparently they dropped $500,000 into it, and it still just sits here and rusts. This fireboat is named after William Lyon Mackenzie, not William Lyon Mackenzie King, which is who I assume most Canadians would think this is. Most Canadians are familiar with Canada's 11th, 14th, and 16th Prime Minister, or however you count. They're less familiar with William Lyon Mackenzie. He's the first mayor of Toronto, but really he's Canada's George Washington. He led the charge against the British during the Canadian War of Independence. We just don't hear about that war often because it didn't go the same way as the American one. Here comes another little ferry, and here comes one of the vehicle ferries. There are actually no vehicles other than sort of maintenance, like in that case you see it's a delivery truck, like garbage trucks and things can go back and forth, but personal vehicles aren't allowed. Which means the whole islands are completely pedestrian, which is nice. But the ferries are obviously getting quite old. They're 60 to 80 years old, depending on which one. And the city of Toronto, in 15 years, has a plan to replace them with other diesel-fired ones, which I think that they should be going with either electric ferries, or my personal favorite idea is building a bridge over here where it's really only a few meters across. Just a pedestrian bridge should be fairly cheap to build it high enough. Board the vessel at the foot of Yonge Street, the longest street in the world. Why did you have to say that? You could have just said Yonge Street and it would have been correct. If you're lucky, you will see one of these bulk carriers coming and dropping off raw sugar cane here at the Redpath plant. I think these things are just fascinating that they still do this downtown. I don't really understand the economics of bringing sugar cane all the way from Brazil and natural gas all the way from Texas just to burn it here and refine it down into sugar, but that's what they do. And yeah, the sheer scale of this thing is really difficult to capture on camera. It always looks, I don't know, smaller than it feels in real life. The best I can do is say, hey, look at the size of the boat here, and then look at the size of this grocery store across the street. I'm about the same distance from both. This isn't, some trompe l'oeil thing where I'm forcing your perspective closer to the boat. The boat is just that huge. It's really just disproportionate to anything else you see downtown in the water. A fun activity is seeing if you can figure out which port of convenience a ship is sailing out of. No ships sail out of the flags they're proud to hoist up high. They always are tax dodging in Liberia or something. In this case, this one's a Cypriot flag. Kind of weird. I saved this one for last and shouldn't have. I love razzle dazzle camo, roughly the weird geometric shapes you see on World War I warships. Actually, in World War I, they would have been even more fantastic. They would have been bright magentas and highlighter yellows and jet black stripes. And the reason was to mess up rangefinders used by submarines to figure out how far they were. They relied on understanding the direction the ship was heading, and if you couldn't make it where the bow was because there were higher contrast lines in the poor optics, you would be missed by submarines, which was nice. And I had always dreamed that this was a sort of World War I boat in a similar to original livery that somebody had brought over. It's really rusty and beat and terrible looking, so I wondered if maybe it was brought over as maybe a museum piece that got abandoned or something. That's not the case at all. It's actually a dry dock. It was built in the 1980s as a timber carrying boat, and after they didn't need to bring timber downtown in it anymore, they just chopped the front off, and now it serves as a dry dock. So this is where touristy boats come to get their lovely blue coats of paint put on, and I assume because they have so much paint here, that's why they did the fun paint scheme. But yeah, it's just a kind of boring bulk carrier, similar to the sugar ones with the front chopped off, much smaller, and here to be a dry dock. Thanks for coming along on a walk with me to check out some of the more interesting boats that you can find in and around Toronto. Have a beautiful day.